This week, John Cena's final wrestling appearance ever comes to us this Saturday. 2 big TV and streaming deals are announced, which could change the landscape of wrestling in the future. And I sit down with one of Canada's best rising stars in pro wrestling today. Sheldon Jean is on the show. That plus Dave Meltzer and more.
Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome to McGuire on Wrestling.
Allow me to reintroduce myself
with Mike McGuire.
Stand up, son. Let me take a good look at you.
This guy's a serious professional.
You know what I want to talk about? Yeah. Well, the professional wrestling.
Do I have your attention now?
Done shilling. I'm done shilling, okay?
Let's get this show on the road.
Professional wrestling.
Hello, once again, welcome to the fastest hour in pro wrestling talk, and we got a loaded one for you this week. Dave Meltzer is here to run through some of the headlines with me. Also, Sheldon Jean. You may have seen him in TNA wrestling. You may have seen him in Noah in Japan if you're a fan of watching those promotions, or you've seen him in Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling and wrestling across Canada, United States, and the world. Sheldon legitimately is one of my favorite up-and-coming wrestlers to watch. Personal bias aside, guy's got some skills, guy's got some talent, and guy's really got a good head on his shoulders as well. We get into a pretty remarkable conversation about personality and confidence, especially, where a lot of people who are confident can easily and quickly be labeled as arrogant or rude, and I think there's a fine line, but it's not that fine of a line if we just really look at it between the two. And Sheldon, just a great guy. He's been putting the hustle in on his wrestling career, working hard and putting on killer matches. So you're going to see that conversation in its entirety on our Celebrate Wrestling YouTube channel later on this week, as well as a separate post on the podcast feed. CelebrateWrestling.com is where you go for all of that. If you're listening on the radio, remember, you get full versions of these interviews, you get extra podcasts from around the world, and it's always free and always about pro wrestling. Now, I want to announce a couple things. New shirts are finally on the way. In fact, we're going to release the pre-order coming up just before the holidays. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get them in time for the holidays, unfortunately, because that's the way things go. But after spending an exorbitant amount of money to reship some shirts to our buddy Scotty A all the way in Australia, after somehow either Canada or Australia Post, one of the two, lost his original shirts, we've sent them by tracking, which literally costs more than the shirts do. But once Scotty A's got his shirts, these shirts go on sale, and these will be all new designs. I'm very excited for them. I think you will be too. Of course, if you want to support the show any way possible, it's appreciated at CelebrateWrestling.com. But we never ask you to pay for the content. It's just here. And if you can toss a couple bucks our way by PayPal, or you want to e-transfer, or you want to send it by way of carrier pigeon, even cold, hard letter mail, which I think we can trust again now that the Canada Post situation seems to be ironing itself out a bit. Let's do it. But either way, appreciate your support, and thank you for being here. Also want to let you know the Holiday Hullabaloo is underway as far as production goes. We'll have a special holiday edition of McGuire on Wrestling for you. Probably going to keep it as a one-parter for those of you that are listening on the podcast feed. It might be a little bit of a longer show, but it'll be a good show. And I'll tell you right now, on that Holiday Hullabaloo is a guest that a few of you especially have asked me to have on the show numerous times. And I felt like, to quote somebody famous, the time is now. No, it's not John Cena. That would be great, right? No, he's doing media everywhere, and we'll talk about that coming up. But the Holiday Hullabaloo will have a pretty cool guest, in addition to some of your favorites from the past, and of course, some of the members here of the Celebrate Wrestling family. Whoever we can get on, honestly. And we're also going to open it up to some of you, the fans out there. But that is all programming stuff. Let's get down to the week here. A great show lined up for you as we get ready also to make our radio station debut on a new radio station coming up in January, AM 1150 in Southern BC. I'm very excited for this because this is, again, just increasing the footprint of this conversation we love to have about pro wrestling. So make sure we hear from you. Okay, we did open a public Celebrate Wrestling Facebook page. I know. How novel, right? We've had the private one for a while, and the reason why I had it was to kind of limit the amount of bots and also the amount of negativity out there. But realistically, this medium works best if you make it as accessible as possible. So if you're already a member of the private page, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and join the public page, give it a like, give it a follow, and realize that some of the content will be moving there permanently, including the discussion threads for shows like Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, etc., etc. Those are going to be happening on the public page. In the private group, though, we're still going to keep it. We might change it to like an insiders page, or, if you really want to get in on the conversation with us, the host, and everybody else. But both pages are now for you on Facebook for free. So look for Celebrate Wrestling Radio and Podcasts, and that is the public page for what we do here. Okay, enough self-promo, enough jibber-jabber. We got some things to talk about, including the biggest headlines of the week. Let's get into it. This is the 5 Count.
You want to hear the breaking news?
Major news coming out of the wrestling world and TV deals as TNA announced that coming up this January, Impact will be relaunching as Thursday Night Impact on AMC in the United States, as well as AMC Plus. So AMC, a cable channel that you can get through subscription, but AMC Plus is the add-on with that. Now, the interesting thing about AMC Plus is that for a lot of people, AMC Plus is also available through subscription services like Roku and Prime, etc., etc. So you can actually add on to your existing subscription package, AMC Plus, and it looks like you'll be getting TNA Thursday Night Impact moving forward this January. The deal is said to be worth about $10 million US, which, while it isn't a lot of money, still is more money coming into the company than they were getting with their current deal through the network that was owned by their ownership in Anthem Sports and Entertainment. AMC's TNA Thursday Night Impact kicks off 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, January the 15th. The other big news that could apply to pro wrestling's future, especially AEW, is the announced merger plan between Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, before everybody gets into too much of a tizzy, this does not include the TV properties, which of course is the primary source of revenue and broadcasting for AEW, Dynamite, and Collision. Nevertheless, it will be interesting to see with the acquisition of HBO Max specifically, whether or not those shows will continue under an HBO Max banner or move forward to Netflix. Of course, nothing at this level is announced, as the deal hasn't even been approved yet through the FCC and may not be for a while. Dave Meltzer is on the show today. We're talking all about these TV deals and what the potential outcomes will be, as well as what could the future for AEW programming look like from a wrestling fan standpoint. Either way, the deal is in the billions and billions of dollars and has also been one of the top entertainment stories around the world this past week. Sticking with pro wrestling content on TV, if you're a fan of Vice TV's Dark Side of the Ring, reports have come out from PWInsider.com that a 7th season has been confirmed and is already under production. Now, no stories have been announced yet, nor do we know what the lineup will be at all. However, fans are expecting some topics to be covered, including the much beleaguered tale of Buck Zumhofe, who has probably one of the darkest stories in pro wrestling history. The series has never fully touched on Buck Zumhofe, nor have there been many documentaries on the subject. Nevertheless, Dark Side of the Ring Season 7 is under production now and is set to come out sometime next year. In what's probably some of the least surprising news, John Cena will face Gunther in his final match in WWE this coming Saturday for Saturday night's main event. Of course, it's going to stream on Peacock in the United States, YouTube around the world, including here in Canada, and it's set to be a very special night, including several matches of main roster stars taking on NXT talent. After NXT Deadline, which took place on Saturday night, new champion once again, Obafemi from NXT is set to take on WWE champion Cody Rhodes. Bayley will face NXT's Sol Ruca, and more matches are expected to be announced later on this week. In another interesting note, John Cena has been doing the media rounds promoting Saturday night's main event, among other things. And he did mention on Jimmy Kimmel that he may be, in fact, appearing as the first match on the show.
I wanted to have my final match, which I'll get my chunk of time, and then dedicate the rest of the show to the future. So if you tune in to Saturday night's main event on Peacock on the 13th, you'll see my final in-ring performance. But you'll also get you'll get a look at the major WWE superstars facing future stars.
A lot of fans have interpreted that as Cena starting the show with the main event and then the rest of it basically being an undercard. But Cena did add this to his comments when Kimmel asked him if he was actually going to stick around till the end of the night.
Will you stay till the end of the show? Will you be there till the end of the
Normally I go to bed early. But I think I'm probably going to end this one, so I'll probably last on it.
Saturday night's main event will air internationally on YouTube at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 Pacific. And speaking of Saturday night's main event in Washington, D.C. for Cena's last match, as of time of production, there are 72 first-run tickets left for sale. Now, that does not include resale tickets, which have spiked up in numbers over the last week here as people have been trying to gobble up the last few tickets. Nevertheless, the event is technically almost sold out now as far as the first run tickets go. If you're looking to get one of those few remaining seats, the best you can do to save money right now is one single seat ticket that's available facing across from the entranceway on the first level, and that ticket is priced at $633.20 US dollars. Now, if you want to get closer to the ring, you can be on what's known as the hard camera side, facing the ring, facing the cameras, in the third row back for the solo ticket price of $3,749.15. Or if you want to sit third row behind the commentary booth, somehow the ticket price is actually more for that ticket at $4,414 US. Some of the resale tickets on the floor now are dropping to the $1,500 mark or so. It'll be interesting to see how the prices decline as the show gets closer and people just want to offload their tickets. Still to come, we're going to talk to Canadian wrestling star Sheldon Jean. If you have not watched this guy's matches, do so, including the latest match against Dungeon Wrestling's Mo Jabari, which has myself, Mitch Honsius, and Dimitri Karolis doing the ring announcing and commentary together on YouTube. But you're going to get to know a lot about this guy. It's a really fun chat. That's on the way. And Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer is next.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
The alternate commentary table, ACT, brought to you by the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. Listen, it's Mitch, it's Dimitri. We got this little pod thing that we do every single week where we talk about the week in wrestling and the way in which we do it from the other side of the railing, right, Mitch?
I like that.
We're coming at it because we love it, we hate it. The alternate commentary table, ACT. Download it anywhere where you're getting your podcasts.
Shasha. It's time for the Wrestling Observer Insider with Dave Meltzer, McGuire on Wrestling.
Dave, we're talking TV and not so much ratings, not so much viewership, but really the whole future of the landscape here. I got an email from Netflix yesterday, just because I'm a subscriber, obviously, with us getting all the WWE content up here. And they're talking about, hey, we are now putting in to own Warner Brothers, which means all new content, all new everything. But for wrestling fans, this is especially interesting. So take us through the broad stroke quickly of just how big this is, and then we'll focus in on the wrestling part a bit here.
Well, I mean, it's like one of the biggest news stories in the country. I mean, as far as the merger, I mean, Warner Brothers, because of Warner Brothers Studio, is just a major company, and of course the TV, TBS was the first major cable station. CNN was the first major news station. Changed the whole landscape of television, and it's been for sale. People know, and there've been three suitors, which were Paramount, Comcast, and Netflix, and they made the decision to go with Netflix. All three put in big bids. Zaslav decided that the Netflix bid was the best bid for them. Even though the Paramount bid was the one that wanted both sides. The Netflix only wants the movies, because the movie studio is very, very valuable. And they want HBO, and HBO Max. They don't want CNN. They don't want TBS, TNT, True TV, and all those stations, Discovery. Comcast didn't really either. So they're splitting the two companies in the summer of this coming year. But now it's way up in the air how this is going to play out, because Paramount is really pitching and pressuring Trump not to approve of the merger and to force them into going with Paramount. And we have to see how that plays out. There's a clause in the deal. It's a $5.8 billion clause that Netflix has to pay if they can't get the deal through. They have to pay to WBD. And they're basically saying, look, Netflix is going to have to pay that because this thing's not going to get approved. There's all kinds of different conjectures as who is playing who. Is Netflix, knowing they're not going to get it, but just doing it to weaken WBD for the 2 years this is going to go in there, and then they'll build up more of a market share without them? Is this David Zaslav playing Netflix knowing that it's not going to get approved, but it will force Paramount to up its bid because Paramount can get approved? Is it just how it looks on paper and it's just an attempt to get it? We don't know. So that's the TV thing. It's something that's going to be going on for a long time. And the next big thing is going to be when the split comes in the summer and how that all goes down. And then what happens to that company, which probably will end up having to be sold as well to somebody, with all the TV stations, all the legacy TV stations. So how that's going to go, we don't know. And from a wrestling standpoint, the key is we know that the TV, AEW is going to be on TBS, TNT. It's going to be on that wing. HBO Max is on the other wing. The TV wing is going to open up their own sports app. Now, my impression is, and AEW believes, they will be staying on the HBO Max app, number one, because that's where their pay-per-views are now, and HBO Max is making a lot of money on their pay-per-views, and that they're doing well on HBO Max, and they're not sports. I could see from the other side, they may want AEW because on the sports side, it was one of the strongest things, except for the NBA and really major events. It was the strongest thing, according to sources that we have, on HBO Max. And they want to build this thing from scratch. If they have to build an app from scratch, though, that will cut way, way down on the exposure of AEW. If they remain on HBO Max, Netflix is saying that they want to keep HBO Max separate. So if they want to keep HBO Max separate and AEW ends up on HBO Max, my thought is it's just business as usual. Nothing's going to change. And it's probably a good thing for AEW.
Right.
If AEW is moved to the other side, then they're going to lose a lot of exposure. If Netflix decides they don't want to do HBO Max, which is exactly the opposite of what they're saying, but people don't trust what people say in these situations because they know if they say, well, we're going to merge them all into one, then it won't be approved. But if they down the line want to merge into one, I don't see AEW on Netflix. I can see AEW pay-per-views. Maybe and probably no. I don't see AEW on Netflix. That's all I'll say.
So on that note, though, I had brought up TSN ran both Nitro and Raw, and we never had the Monday Night War up here because Nitro, first of all, started out as a 1 hour edited program, and then it turned into Wednesday or Tuesday broadcasts after Raw. We never had to deal with watching one or the other. We always got the other one 2 days later here. Now, seeing that Netflix is handling their international deal with WWE differently, do you think there's a possibility where in those markets where, an HBO Max isn't a regular reach here, that there's a possibility where if they were to acquire the AEW digital streaming rights here, where that could end up on Netflix as well as WWE? Or do you know if there's an exclusivity deal between WWE
It's not
and
so much exclusivity, but just every move that Netflix has made since the WWE deal makes me think that that's not going to happen, because I think the WWE deal was like a test of a weekly television show.
Right.
And they've decided in their negotiations with baseball that just concluded, in their negotiations with boxing, which they didn't get, and in their negotiations with UFC, which they also didn't get. In all three cases, they didn't want weekly television. They want big events. They're under a deal with WWE for weekly television. They will keep that with WWE. But I think that the experiment of that, they consider okay, weekly television is not for us. So the idea of AEW being on Netflix, that's one of the reasons I say, whether there's exclusivity or not, this is not what Netflix wants. Netflix wants big events. They want 3 boxing shows a year, not a monthly show. They don't want every Saturday night UFC. They would take the big shows. They don't want baseball every single week. They want home run derby. They want playoff games. They want opening day. They want big events. So I would say AEW on Netflix is highly, highly unlikely, whether WWE is an exclusive or not. But if they keep HBO Max separate, I don't see that the fact that they're in bed with WWE is not going to hurt AEW if they have HBO Max separate. I don't see that at all. So I don't see the WWE thing actually being a factor in the future. If this deal goes through, the factor is do they keep HBO Max separate? And is AEW even going to be on HBO Max, which they say they will, after the split? So that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, people are kind of like, oh, my God, this is terrible for AEW. And look, you've been through enough of these regime changes in your own life.
Yes, sir.
It's always uncertainty. It could be terrible. It could be great. There's no way of knowing, and we won't know for years on this. But as far as like this is the end of AEW, no. I mean, and again, no matter what happens, there's still other places you can go and you can negotiate a deal. And AEW's established, especially, they're not a startup. They're 6 years in. By the time this contract's done, it's going to be 8 or 9 years in, depending on whether they pick up the renewal or the option year. And by this point, they're either going to be so far down that, by their own popularity, they're not going to make it, which I doubt, but it could happen. Or they're going to be, 9 years established company with a good deal of popularity. And there'll be plenty of platforms, I believe, that would want them. And Tony Khan's got a lot of connections. People forget he's an NFL owner, and the NFL has got deals with everybody, and he can go to the table, with people. So, I mean, the idea that this is like the a death knell for AEW, absolutely not.
Well, I don't think it's that, and especially, and the next topic we're going to talk about here is living proof of that. I mean, TNA wrestling has survived every possible apocalyptic thing that could happen to them pretty well, and still is here.
Because they're dead. They when they were about to be done, they still had people who wanted to buy. Billy Corgan wanted to buy, Anthem bought, and obviously AEW is just multiple times stronger than TNA. But Tony's not going to sell this thing. I don't think. If something happens to Tony, but he has. The company's self-sufficient. It doesn't, if Tony's not there, though, there'll be a power grab. It'll be a mess. But as long as Tony is, and he's not, and this is like, Tony Khan's health.
Yeah.
He's in his early 40s. I don't expect anything bad to happen. But I mean, it's always, it's the same thing with 40 years ago, let's say. If something happened to Vince 40 years ago with WWE, WWE would have survived, but there would have been a hell of a power grab, and who knows what would have happened.
Well, I think we do know what happened now. I mean, we've seen it, and it's become...
Well, now it's more popular than ever, but I'm talking about if this happened in, say, 1990.
When the company's struggling and things aren't going as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, who knows? But I think they would have still survived through it all because they're still a valuable property, and I think both are going to, they're going to be, as entertainment becomes more and more fragmented, something like a wrestling is more and more important. In this week's Observer, I actually did a story which had to do with the TNA deal. And I was going through every station that wrestling is on. And, on every station with no exceptions, the closest one is TNT with Collision. It does better than what they would do. And it helps the station average. I mean, the SmackDown, of course, is the biggest boom of all of them, but CW, TNT, and to a lesser extent, TBS, and to a lesser extent, TNT are all helped by the fact that they have this wrestling program. So it's not like when you see these numbers, you go, "Oh my God, these numbers are low." It's like you got to compare it to cable in general. They're above the average on every station and well above the average of TNT. They're well above the average of CW, and they're well above the average. Whether that'll be the case with AMC or not, AMC's average is probably 160 to 180.
Okay.
Whether they can do that every week, I don't know.
Well, let's talk about this now in depth. And if you're just tuning in, this is McGuire on Wrestling, talking to Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. We just talked about the merger announcement between Netflix and Warner Brothers and how that could affect AEW. Within the same week, In fact, before this news came out, TNA announced through a bit of a cryptic post, like 12 hours before they made it official, that they are now going to be airing Thursday Night Impact on AMC starting in the new year. This is a way bigger reach, like you said.
Yeah, double reach.
Way more households, and it's a way bigger marketing machine too, because AMC does have digital platforms, whether it's on Prime, whether it's through different platforms you can subscribe through Roku and whatnot. But
they got, it's going to be on AMC Plus, and also they're paying $10 million a year, which is adds that to the budget. So that probably is going to make the company profitable. They were not profitable, but it makes them profitable, and that's always a good thing for a company. TNA is not going anywhere. They're going to survive. 3 more years, if not longer. And either they draw or they don't, and it's a big step up for them. They should be growing in 2026.
Well, unlike before, where we've seen other networks take over TNA, and even when Anthem bought it, like Anthem to me missed an opportunity because they don't have as big of a digital platform as a lot of these stations and networks now have. So for TNA to now be on the AMC and AMC Plus availability, I mean, this puts it in the hands of people that are going to go, oh, TNA is still a thing, because there's undoubtedly people that just dropped off completely from wrestling and might see that and go, this might be interesting. And then as long as they keep the production up, as long as they keep doing what they're doing, I mean, they've been able to sell tickets, they've been able to sell shows. So, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to close the gap anytime soon, but this definitely gives them a chance to get more noticed and maybe become an actual contender again.
Look, it's 100% positive. There's no negative to this TNA deal. So they're going to have more exposure. They're going to have more chances. They should sell more tickets. They're a bigger company now. That's all.
We've heard from the TNA Wrestling president. He gave an interview on Busted Open saying the relationship with NXT is going to continue. Although he also said there was no WWE involvement in the discussions, which, I mean, makes sense just for monopoly's sake alone. You don't want to be tied to that.
You certainly don't want to say. And I mean, I don't know that WWE opened that door. If it was like CW and he said that, I would say, WWE opened that door. But it's a different station, and, it hasn't had any wrestling. And we'll see how wrestling does on the station. It's not necessarily compatible to wrestling, but it's better than Access in the United States. So
there's A&E, but A&E has been renewing WWE content now for years.
So A&E is actually the one station where the wrestling is not going to benefit to this overall station average. I mean, the WWE content on A&E, is way below what the station average is, but everybody else, the wrestling shows beat the station average.
Still, I mean, the more and more we get into niche broadcasting and niche programming, I feel that, networks having their own theme is diminishing more and more. Like you can still have science fiction channels, you can still have drama and foreign film and stuff like that. But when it comes down to the rest of these guys and girls that are all just scraping to get any new content, it's you're basically doing the best grab for whatever you can get that'll bring in numbers, right?
Yeah, and wrestling's, if nothing else, it's reliable.
Dave, before we move on here, I do want to talk a little bit about, of course, the last week in wrestling here. We did not get a reveal on the Masked Man just yet, and now it's pushing more speculation that this might go all the way to the Royal Rumble. I mean, who knows what this thing is? But, I mean, to me, having Austin Theory be revealed as the guy still makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Just depends on a lot of different things. Like if you could drag it to the Royal Rumble, it could be Jericho.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But where would he fit into this whole thing? Why would he be there? Why, storyline wise, it just doesn't make any real.
Well, he's Chris Jericho. He's a big star. He can, and it's better for him to start in some storyline that involves Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins and CM Punk. He gave the curb stomp to CM Punk. So the idea of, Jericho and CM Punk, that's a weird one because there's a real personality clash, but they'll both do business. I don't want to say Punk. I don't want to say that about Punk. Jericho will do business for sure if he feels it's the right thing to do. Punk, we'll see. I expect that if WWE tells him, he's not going to put up a fuss.
I think this CM Punk today is doing a lot more business than maybe you might have expected in the past. I mean,
Well, it's WWE. It's WWE. If he says no, then he gets a real black mark. So, and he doesn't have the power to get away with it because they don't need anyone. You know what I mean? Anyone can leave. Roman Reigns is not even around much, and they've gone on and they've been fine. And Cena's leaving, and they'll be fine. Although there is a softening of their business a little bit. It's still super healthy, but ticket advances and everything like that. I mean, it's past the peak, but it's still at a great place. But the point of all this is that I don't see Punk being a rebel or anything. So the guy who ran in was Austin Theory. It could end up being Austin Theory. The plan was for Austin Theory to be in the division, so we'll see.
Interesting things going on AEW TV as well. We're seeing Eddie Kingston being the guy put in for Samoa Joe here. I like both guys for different reasons. Is this the decision that makes the most sense to have on the marquee to you going into the new year here?
I mean, the marquee to me is still going to be Paige and Strickland. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work out, but I'm guessing it's Joe and Strickland as the main event for World's End, and Paige may, end up being part of that in a three-way. But I just think Eddie Kingston, it'd be really cool if they did something big with Eddie Kingston and got him in that mix as well. But I see Eddie Kingston more as just, a first title defense on TV to hopefully build a rating and hopefully do something to help build Swerve and Joe. That's how I see it. Or, I suppose Eddie could win and you could shake things up like that. I mean, Tony's been a lot more unpredictable with booking, but, so I don't rule it out, but I don't expect it.
And then staying with AEW, we saw reports last week that Darby Allin had legitimately injured himself again. Is that 100% legit?
Oh, yeah, that's legit. Yeah, he had a head injury. He was legitimately in the hospital after the match with Kevin Knight and flew home. He was at TV last night, but he was pulled from the Continental Classic. Jack Perry put in his spot. And I don't know when he'll be back. When you have a head injury, it's like it could be 2 weeks. It could be 6 months. It could be Adam Cole, So hopefully the fact that he could fly is good. The fact that he did fly in and they brought him in. I heard he got, he was much better after the first day. But it was, I heard it was very scary that night, and he said he lost feeling, or whatever. His legs went out in the middle of the match and he was really scared. But he continued the match. And, so hopefully, hopefully he's better as soon as possible.
All right, Dave, last thing for you here, and it's a story that nobody seems to really be talking about, and I had brought it up a little bit last week, and again, if there's nothing here, there's nothing here, but I did want to ask you about the Becky Lynch situation that came out during the Burt Kreischer interview, and for those that missed it, Becky had basically said that when she first got into WWE, that there was a main roster talent who everybody knew, who would basically either single you out to have a relationship of sorts and either go with you and then, quote, blacklist you, or if you didn't go along with this, they would also blacklist you. Now, I don't want to put us in a position of any liability here, but I mean, we have heard stories like this in the past of things like this happening. I mean, obviously, Vince McMahon is probably the biggest one where we've heard a lot of things there, but at the same time, it's like, okay, this type of thing you don't hear about at all anymore, which is a good thing, I feel, for WWE.
You never. That was stuff that was always kept under wraps. I'm really surprised she said it, and it's a weird one because when you say it like that, everyone's going to jump to coming up with names that are probably inaccurate. So I think that in a sense, it's almost irresponsible. But if she wanted something out, because we're kind of saying it like how it's better now, and it is. I mean, women were playthings in the old WWE, and now they're very serious stars. It has changed. Look, you hear names all the time, but I mean, it's also something that she was talking about when she was coming up. This is, whatever it is, 8-9 years ago. I just think that it's bad because I've seen these names thrown out and it's like, they're probably wrong. But again, I couldn't tell you with 100% certainty. Certainly there's situations where people, if they dig deep enough, Obviously with Vince, it's somewhat knowledge. It's been out there, but I don't think she was talking about Vince. It becomes a weird one. Like, who's she talking about? And she said she'll never give the name. I was just surprised that she did it that way because it just fueled a lot of speculation.
And I don't even know if she meant to do it that way. It just seemed to be the way the conversation was going. I mean, if you watch that whole interview, that's kind of where it stemmed from. But of course, people are going to pick out every line anybody says about anything, and that's a pretty big line. So
that's pretty. It's a big one because number one, I mean, the key is for someone to have that power. It can't be like an undercard guy. You know what I mean? It's got to be one of the real top guys.
Well, you said top, so yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about top. So then it becomes, okay, there's a finite number of them. And it's like, and if one of them is there and still around, it's like, that becomes a real weird one. But, because it could kill their career. But if she never says the name, then it won't. And are they going to, are they going to investigate? Are they going to do a fake investigation? I don't know what happened. I've heard nothing conclusive. It does tell you that in her mind, and again, like I said, the one thing is that got to be a top person because nobody else would have that power.
Last thing for Dave Meltzer as we go into a big weekend this weekend, Saturday, December 13th. It is John Cena's final match. As predicted, as figured, Gunther will be the final opponent here. So, Dave, I'm going to ask you to put on your prediction hat here. Not what's best for business hat, but what you literally think is going to happen on Saturday night's main event. Is John Cena losing to Gunther, or is Gunther going to take the pin?
It was me. I think the fact that John Cena lost to Dominic, I don't want him to go out with 2 straight losses, so I think he should win his last match. That's my thought as far as what's going to happen. My gut is John will want to lose, and it will be like Sting, with everything, where will everybody else talk him out of it? Because, Sting wanted to lose. And I think that's what we're going to see. As much as John Cena says he doesn't care and doesn't make these decisions and everything like this, he's got a lot of input into a lot of his stuff. And if he wants to lose, which I would think he would, it could go that way. I think he should not lose now. It doesn't really matter because it's all about the ceremony afterwards and the farewell. People aren't going to really remember the match so much. But, and Gunther did beat Bill Goldberg, so it's kind of like, you don't want to do the same thing twice in the same year. So I am going with the idea, if I'm going to bet, I'm betting John Cena wins. Okay.
See, and I'm going to go the exact opposite. I still think they're going to create Gunther as this, I retire legends at their prime.
Absolutely could. Absolutely
in John Cena's case, at their prime. Whereas, Goldberg, But nevertheless, I mean, it'll be interesting. So look forward to talking to you next week about it. And, of course, we're getting ready for the holiday season. So it'll be an interesting weekend for sure. But, Dave Meltzer, before we go, what are some stories people can read about besides the things we've talked about in the Wrestling Observer?
Yeah, giant issue when it comes to the news because of the TNA story where we went really a lot of detail into it, as well as basically you can look and see the state of wrestling when it comes to American television. And then the WBD stuff, and then, Survivor Series, the follow-up of Survivor Series, where the booking is going. Got a story on a British wrestler named Ringo Rigby, really colorful story, who passed away last week. He wrestled in the United States. He wrestled in Mexico, wrestled in the UK, was, big judo guy. But really, he and Chris Adams were a tag team. It's not a name that people outside of California, because it's the only territory he ever worked, would know. And even in California, he was only here 6 months. But, he had, I was actually like the more I wrote, it was like, wow, this is kind of an interesting character, and then plus just all of the Mexico and the Japan tag team tournaments. And it's kind of like a big, end of the year is a lot of big shows, a lot of UFC stuff as well. So it's the last 2 issues have been really, really big when it comes to news.
He is Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer. Joins us every week here on McGuire on Wrestling. Dave, all the best, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, have a great week.
This is McGuire on Wrestling.
CKXU-FM 88.3 in Lethbridge is Southern Alberta's true alternative radio station.
The cream of the crop. Nobody does it better.
Proudly carrying McGuire on Wrestling every week.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something different to listen to,
This is going to be a slobber knocker.
check out our NCRA award-winning lineup of programs or stream us anytime at ckxu.com.
You know, I had the chance to meet Sheldon earlier on. As the wrestlers were arriving in the building, I said, I was a big fan. I was looking forward to seeing him here. And he thought I was being sarcastic. I said, no, sir. And he said, well, you don't need to tell me what I am. I know what I am.
Well, he's showing it in the ring right now, and what he knows about himself is that he can be a champion.
And that's exactly it. Unfortunately, Mo Jabari suffering due to the effects of the sucker punch and now just a series of dirty. Look, ripping the shirt off Jabari. Sheldon Jean is just vicious.
Welcome back to McGuire on Wrestling.
Well, you've seen him on TV, you've seen him wrestle around the world, and now he's here on McGuire on Wrestling. Sheldon Jean, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How you doing, brother?
Really good, really good. See,
Appreciate you having me.
Thank you for being here. This is the Sheldon that I got to know a little bit before our last Dungeon Wrestling show in Calgary. We're going to talk about the Sidewalk Savant in a bit as well, but we were just complaining about the fact that winter has hit us in our respective parts of Canada. Now, are you still in Ottawa now?
I'm actually currently in Ottawa, and I'm from Ottawa, but I live in Windsor, Ontario.
Okay, yeah, because you trained down there with CanAM, but
correct.
When it comes to being an Ottawa kid, see, I'm wearing it. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm wearing my Wes's Chips Armprior, Ontario shirt.
Umpire, Ontario.
Dude, I'm from Armprior, like right outside Ottawa.
Are you actually from Umpire?
Yeah. I grew up out there. So,
that's crazy. How long were you out there for?
Formative years, so like up to like age 4. Then we moved out west for a bit. Then we moved back.
Yeah.
And actually, my mom is buried there, so I was just there a few years ago as well.
Wow, imagine that. So I mean, if you're speaking to somebody that's American per se, you just say you're from Ottawa.
No, I don't even say that.
You don't claim it?
You know what it's like though, man. You tell anybody you're from Canada, they say, "Oh, you're from Canada." You know?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's fair. No, that's completely fair.
You're from Edmonton. Oh, is that by Toronto? Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, Toronto, downtown Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel you. That's cool. Yeah, I always say close to Toronto is where I'm from.
Yeah,
that's where I tell my American friends. Yeah.
Well, again, it was a pleasure to meet you at the Dungeon Wrestling show, WrestleWeen, and we got to chat a little bit. It was funny. I actually used one of our interactions. I don't know if you've watched the match back at all.
I did. I heard. That's funny, and I'm sure the fans would think that that's just made up on the fly, but that actually happened. That's a real conversation that we had.
So it's funny because you're obviously a great guy to work with and deal with here, but when you're in the ring, it's a different story. And so it was a perfectly innocent conversation. And I think that's kind of the magic of the wrestling world that we're in. And, you get to do it physically. And if I can take something as simple as a rather pleasant conversation we had and turn it into, this is how much of a jerk this guy really is.
Yeah, that is the beauty of wrestling. It's blending real life with our wrestling life. It just makes everything easier and more organic and fun for everybody to go along with. It's similar to when people say it's easier to lie when the lie is kind of true.
Right.
If that makes any sense. You don't fully lie. You lie about one specific part and then the rest is true. So it's kind of just like wrestling. So using that interaction was great. I actually had a good laugh listening to it because I was watching with my brother and I'm like, that conversation actually happened.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah, kudos to you. Yeah.
I don't mean to pull the curtain back too much here, but to me, it's one, and honestly, that was probably, and I'm not saying this just to butter your bread here, that was probably top, maybe my favorite match of the night here. No disrespect to everybody else here, but just the story that you and Mo had. I remember Brett was there, and you guys were going over kind of what you were going to talk about, and Mo just nonchalantly puts out, it's like the you and Diesel finish, and that was from a Survivor Series years ago. I can't remember if it was 95 or 96, but I remember the match vividly because I'm a Bret Hart mark, and that finish, I mean, that's exactly what you guys pulled off. But dude, you were like 0 maybe when that match happened.
I think I was 1 year old. Yeah. If I'm, you know what? Maybe I wasn't officially 1 yet. Yeah. So you're right. I was 0.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
That's the beauty of wrestling. It's timeless, especially with somebody like Brett. There's a lot of things that he does that stood the test of time. There's a lot of styles of wrestling that you can't get away with doing now. All respect to that style, but the guys that are really good, their styles are like ageless. You can do it 30 years ago, you can do it today, and if done correctly, the results are always great. So that match, it takes quite a wrestling mind to understand that the story of that match is how it should go. A lot of people, you'll encounter them or you'll want to work with them, and the story might call for a certain sequence, but people want to get their stuff off. People want to do their moves. But it was cool working with Mo because he's smart enough to know how to commit to a story, and I'm very grateful that he was very giving in that match. But I did enjoy the story as well, and there's just so much more that can be told within it.
For those listening and those watching maybe on YouTube or social media right now, look up the Jericho Oceanic Championship match.
Technically it was,
between Mo Jabari and Sheldon Jean, and you can find it on YouTube under Dungeon Wrestling. Anyway, dude, let's talk about it a bit here. I know a bit of your history. I don't like to go too deep into the weeds and read your resume back to you, but what I actually used as notes for this, I went back and watched some of your Maple Leaf Pro matches. And Morrow did such a great job. And again, I'm a commentary nerd. So Morrow did such a great job of talking about your upbringing. And you're the heel in this match still, but he's talking about your history and getting the bits out there. So for those that don't know, I know you fell in love with this at a young age, but being born in 95, when did wrestling really sink into you, and who were the stars that attracted you to watch it?
No, that's a good question. And shout out to Mauro Ranello. He said he did a really good job. He always just does a good job. That's his kind of his default setting, is doing good job. But for me, wrestling started when I was 3 or 4. I have an older brother that's 5 years older than me, so I just began watching with him. So this would have been in 98, 99. My first vivid memory, though, of me watching wrestling is SummerSlam 2000. It was a triple threat match. I believe it was the main event. It was Kurt Angle, The Rock, and Triple H, the main event of SummerSlam 2000, I believe. And that's my first conscious memory at 5 years old, or about to turn 5 years old, of professional wrestling. But my most consistent memory of wrestling is WWF No Mercy on Nintendo 64. Like seriously, me and my brother and my friend, we played that religiously. So 4 or 5 years old, that's when I was hooked, and I just never stopped.
People will criticize, and sometimes it's the old timers, and I say that with respect. Will criticize, quote, video game wrestlers, right? And they're trying to wrestle like a video game, but legitimately video games, especially when they started getting as good as they got. No Mercy was one of those catalyst games, I feel, that really brought you in and made you think like, man, if I could do this for real, like, how
this is amazing. This is amazing. No Mercy, as if you said you're a wrestling nerd, every wrestling nerd knows WWF No Mercy is the tippity top of pro wrestling video games. And it really did introduce a lot of people. It's core memory for a lot of us when it comes to pro wrestling. Like, you should see in every locker room at some point, No Mercy gets brought up. And when I was on TNA, every loop, at some point in the locker room, we'd be talking about WWF No Mercy.
Did anybody ever bring one and just like bust it out?
Oh yeah, Rich Swann always would bring video games. Sometimes he'd bring the new WWE games. A lot of times he'd bring the old ones. So yes, all the time.
Who was your go-to? Did you have a go-to character you went to?
In No Mercy, so growing up, I loved The Undertaker. Yeah. So I'd always use The Undertaker. I loved using what's his face? Al Snow for some reason. And the weapons. Eddie Guerrero in China. I remember you could throw the flowers as well. Yeah. I loved that game. I always created my own guy, of course. But it was fun. Played a lot of hours that went into No Mercy.
I had Al Snow on the show a couple months ago, and he would be.
Oh, that's ironic.
He would be thrilled to hear that you used him.
Yeah, man, I used them legit. Yeah.
Oh, that's legit, man. So eventually you get sewn into this. You're obsessed like the rest of us. You do have an athletic background, though. And so was amateur wrestling a part of that at all, or was it strictly other sports?
When I look back at it, I wish I would have done amateur wrestling in high school and whatnot, but never did. I was a basketball player. I played basketball at a pretty high level from when I was 8 years old all the way up until college. I was on a very successful high school basketball team in Canada. We were like one of the best teams in the country. And then I went to Georgian College here in Ontario, and I played basketball for a year. And then after a year, I said, you know what? Something feels off. I wanna be a wrestler.
Something that's really developed is your character work and the Sidewalk Savant. So for people that don't understand who or what the Sidewalk Savant is, how would you describe this persona that you bring to the ring?
Yeah, the Sidewalk Savant is essentially just, it's a name, but it's who I am. So describing it is always interesting because I'm literally just describing myself from the streets to the ring. A guy that has a surplus of confidence that gets him into trouble and out of trouble a lot of the time. He operates by his own code. He's known for his intellect, but he's just a street kid at heart. Those are pretty much the thesis statements to describe who the Sidewalk Savant is. A combination of a intellectual, philosophy student dropout, but he's from the streets. So it's just a hybrid combination of having real smarts and that dog in him.
And that mean streak is what I've really seen amplified in you in as of late, especially with our show in Calgary that happened here. But depicting someone who is exactly what you said you are. And I believe this. I believe this is you, going back to our conversation of the, you know what you are. And that can be interpreted as an arrogant or cocky statement, but I do believe there's a fine line where sometimes we need to appreciate confidence in someone. And for you to be an athlete at the level you were at with basketball and to transition that into wrestling and decide, you know what, I want to take this around the world, but you put the grind in, you put the work in, so you know where you're at now. I mean, in conversations like this, you and I, you might be saying, well, I obviously have a lot to learn still and the world keeps changing around me, but how do you deal with people who might first take that confidence the wrong way?
You know what, Mike? I will say that's a very perspicacious take of yours, and I have to give you credit because a lot of people don't look at my character that in depth to be able to ask that, because that's a real thing, is having to balance not pissing people off or coming off obnoxious or arrogant, because my character does come off very genuine. Mm-hmm. It is still just an amplified version of who I am in real life, but I look the same backstage. I have the same voice. My mannerisms are similar to the Sidewalk Savant. So a very consistent thing that I have to deal with is making sure people don't think I'm living the gimmick per se.
Right.
So the way that I balance it, I suppose it's just conversations like this, showing the decent respect that we're all taught when we first go to wrestling school, making sure I shake everybody's hand, giving everybody the time of day. I always try to thank the ring crew after the show. I like to speak to the cameramen, the commentators, the wrestlers. It doesn't matter who. I see it as a team. And from my sports background, I try to make it feel as though it's a team atmosphere and the camaraderie, and that I don't think I'm better than anybody. I'm just playing my role. I'm playing my spot. My spot is to be on this show and to be the Sidewalk Savant, and then I'm going to do that. So it's difficult to balance because it's not completely up to me. Mm-hmm. It's up to the person that is receiving, and people are always going to look at you however they're going to look at you. Exactly. It does say more about them than me, but in a business that is so, I guess, superficial and networking based, I do run into my issues time to time.
Oh, I hate to cut this conversation off, but the full version will be posting this Wednesday on the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed. My conversation with Sheldon Jean, and as you can hear there, we start getting pretty deep. And I really enjoyed this conversation because I feel it's an attitude that people have against confidence these days, where it's like, if you're not humble, you're a jerk. But if you know what you're doing and you say you know what you're doing, you're also a jerk. So I don't know where that line is for you in your life, but you'll hear Sheldon and I talk about that, talk about matches, talk about opponents, talk about all the good stuff with wrestling, and most importantly, what he sees his future as. Again, a conversation you don't want to miss in its entirety with Sheldon Jean on the Celebrate Wrestling podcast feed, CelebrateWrestling.com. I'm Mike McGuire. Thank you for joining me for this week's show. We are back with another one next week. An announcement on the holiday hullabaloo with some big guests you won't want to miss. Until next time, as always, thanks for listening and letting me do what I do. Play safe, drive safe. Cena.
McGuire on Wrestling. Online and on the radio. Listen to the show Mondays at 4 p.m. Mountain Time at CKXU.com, wherever you get your podcasts, and at McGuireShow.com.